to become a horseman means making difficult decisions. So am I willing to do what it takes? Am I willing to accept that I don't know all of this and I need to learn it? And it will take time learning to train horses, learning to work with horses. It takes time because you need to repeat it. No great musician ever just sat down at his piano and played the piano. They all started off at the beginning. They all made mistakes. Hi everybody, Andy Booth with you again. This has been a long series of videos and I hope you've really enjoyed it. You've stuck with it, been learning a lot, I hope, and having another way of looking at the horse, another way of thinking about how interpreting situations differently. That's really important. Today I'm just going to put a little video together and not talk so much about how we train the horse, but maybe talk a little bit about ourselves, because we've talked about horseman science. We're talking a lot about the horseman. Now, there's the horse in the story, but there's also the man. And you've probably already realized as we've been going through these videos that you can work on the horse, but the biggest job is to work on yourself. Now, here at our center in France, in Bordeaux, we can take horses and fix horses, but it's not necessarily the best thing to do, because if the person doesn't change, well, the horse won't change. The first thing that needs to change is the human. The human is the cause of the problem, not the horse. The horse didn't invent the problems that he's come up with. He learnt them, and the human would have been responsible for that. So if we were going to become a great horseman, maybe the first thing you need to work out is the man part. Am I the best version of myself? Am I being as good as I can be? Am I becoming the human that my horse needs me to be so that I can help him? And a lot of humans, they like someone else to fix the horse. We get that a bit here. People send the horse and say, can you fix my horse? And they don't necessarily want to fix themselves. Now, one of the things that you'll pretty quickly learn, if you want things to change, and I'm not just talking about horses, I'm talking about anything. If you want things to change, the first thing that needs to change is that you need to change. You can change your saddle, you can change the bit, you can change your trainer, you can change the barn, you can change a lot of things, but the best thing to probably change is yourself, because you'll be wherever you go. So if the problem's you, then there's no point changing the trainer and the barn, because wherever you go to the next barn and the next trainer, you'll still be there and you're the problem. Becoming a horseman requires the human to question himself and maybe not be so egotistical, maybe not say, okay, I've got all this figured out. Now there's a phrase in English which is quite funny but true. You can always tell a horseman, but you can't tell him much. So often people, when they get into a relationship with horses, it's a very personal territory. Telling people how to train their horse is almost like telling people how to raise their kids. You've got to go into there with your delicate gloves on, because otherwise you could offend someone and be very diplomatic. But as far as when you want to become a horseman, well, you need to understand that. You need to know that sometimes you need to ask the questions and say, well, maybe I haven't got this figured out, and question yourself and say, okay, what could I be doing better? Where's it going wrong? Why are my results not going as well as they could be? How could I improve? Am I getting a little bit off track? And always going back and saying, am I on track? Sometimes I might find myself getting a little hard on horses and say, okay, I need to soften up a bit. And now you say, oh, I'm getting too soft. I'm not being effective. I'm being nice and gentle, but I'm not getting the job done. So I need to find that middle ground. And there's a whole bunch of balances. I could do another video on that where we just talk about all the different balances. There's field timing and balance is one thing, but there's so many different balances. Is my horse not scared but very sensitive? Or have I over desensitized the horse and now it's a big cow and he's not sensitive? Or have I not done enough and he's very, very sensitive, which is nice and light, but he's very scared? Have I found that middle ground? Am I training too much with the carrot or too much with the stick? Or have I found the middle ground, which is where the famous carrot stick found its name? Am I finding that place in between the carrot and the stick? And there's a lot of other balances, even if it's just impulsion with my horse. Have I got good brakes? Have I got an accelerator? And are they well balanced? Or is my horse a little bit more accelerator or a little bit more brakes? And these things can change during the week while you're working with the horse. But you need to be able to question yourself. You need to be not so sure of yourself that you say, oh, the horse is the problem. Don't blame the horse, blame yourself. And if you can ask yourself these questions, and doing that, questioning yourself, can be a little bit uncomfortable. Doubting yourself doesn't mean you become a doubter and you say, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing. Sure, you know what you're doing, but you're asking yourself the good questions. As you go down the track trying to become a horseman, you'll go through a few phases, and the first one will be rather comfortable, is that you'll be unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know, and all's good. And you think, well, got to find myself a good horse. I've got to find an easy horse. I've got to find a horse that isn't stupid, or a horse that doesn't be an idiot, or a horse that isn't play up, or maybe not so hot or not so cold. Or you think you need to find the right horse, but you haven't yet figured out that you need to become the right human, which is all fine, because you think it's the horse is the problem, or maybe the trainer, or maybe the barn, or maybe the saddle, or maybe the bit, or maybe other things. And then one day you go off and you do a clinic with someone, and there it happens, that terrible thing where suddenly you realize the horse is not the problem. And you have to swallow that, because bitter truths are always a lot better than lies that flatter. People will prefer, majority of people will prefer lies that flatter. That's just how life goes. It's one of the things about science. Science tells the bitter truth. You would prefer to believe that the horse is wanting to fulfill your objectives, and he likes to win, and he wants to make you happy, and he loves you very, very much because you're such a great human, and he would do anything to please you. You don't really want to understand that it's just a four-legged furry animal that doesn't have a prefrontal cortex, and he just wants to take care of himself and find his own comfort zone and understand and have control of his environment, and your objectives aren't important to him, but his objectives are. See, that's way less romantic, isn't it? And if we say that all equestrian responses are conditioned responses, and they're not necessarily because he wants to and because he loves you, we lose a lot of the romance. And that's where science has a difficulty, because science is very cut and dried and cold, and it doesn't touch all those touchy-feely emotions as much as maybe it should, and then it would of course sell better and be more popular. Humans will always prefer a lie that flatters them than a bitter truth. So I would invite you even so to look at the bitter truth and say, okay, this is a horse. A horse is just a horse, of course, and understand how it works, and accept that maybe the horse isn't there. You don't need the horse to fulfill your needs. Maybe you need to fulfill his needs. Maybe you don't need to be going after the horse taking care of your objectives. Maybe you need to take care of his objectives. And maybe if you take care of his objectives, you can obtain yours. Maybe look at things a little bit differently. Maybe instead of when my girl was just a baby, I'm sure she loved us, but it was all about her. Just me, feed me. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning, wake up. And then later on, we get into a sort of conditional area with, I'll do this if you do that. And none of those things are healthy relationships. It needs to be unconditional. I don't expect anything from you. I just like you for what you are. And that's how people need to learn to like horses. You don't need to expect anything from the horse. The horse doesn't owe you anything. You got into his life. He didn't get into yours. So now try and help the horse take care of his needs. He doesn't owe you anything, but you might need to take care of his needs, and you owe him a bunch. Especially, it's a big responsibility having a horse. So maybe having the right attitude would make a huge difference to whether or not you become a horseman. If you're in it for the wrong reasons, if you're in the horse game to win or to take care of your own ego, maybe that might make becoming a horseman a little bit more difficult. And maybe you're unable to question yourself and admit when you're going down the wrong track, and maybe you prefer to stay in that unconsciously incompetent area where you don't know much, but at least no one cares because you don't know that you don't know, and so it's not upsetting you. But then you go to that first clinic and suddenly you find out that in fact you're consciously incompetent. You know that you don't know, and suddenly the instructor or the teacher or the big guru comes down, takes your horse, shows you how to get it done, and you think, oh dear, I can't do that. Let me have a go. No, it's not working out at all. Well, of course it's not working out at all. He's been doing it for 20 or 30 years. You've been doing it for 20 minutes. If you could get it done in 20 minutes, that wouldn't make any sense. Everyone would be doing it. If it wasn't hard work, everyone would be doing it. And everyone would be great horsemen. No one would fall off, and horses wouldn't go and get turned into dog food. But that's not the case, is it? So when we're trying to become a horseman, we need to ask ourselves some questions. Am I willing to do what it takes? Am I willing to put up with some uncomfortable situations? Now, about anything you get done in life, it's all proportional. I mean, what I mean by that is your ability to succeed and your ability to go places will be directly proportional to your ability to put up with being uncomfortable. There's nothing within your comfort zone that's going to help you become comfortable. If it was within your comfort zone, you'd already have it. You'd already have everything you want. Everything that you want is somewhere outside that comfort zone. So if you want to become a horseman, you better be ready to step out of your comfort zone. You can't stay in there and have this. You need to step out. Now, I've stepped out quite a lot. I stepped out of my country in the beginning, went to America from Australia. Then I stepped out of my language and came to France. And I've stepped into a lot of different horses and horse worlds, and stepped into the cowboy world, stepped into the show jumping and dressage world. And being out of that comfort zone and stepping out of that comfort zone and into these uncomfortable situations I've been rewarded a million times by all of that. Now, when you step out of that comfort zone, of course, it means you're inviting your life to become a little bit more difficult, but difficult decisions, easy life. Easy decisions, difficult life. That's how it works. Easy decisions, sit on the couch, eat chips and drink a beer. Really comfortable, instant pleasure, absolutely no happiness in the long term, very difficult life. Make the uncomfortable decisions, make the difficult decisions, probably end up with a more easier life. Life becomes easier when you make the difficult decisions. That's just how it works. And to become a horseman means making difficult decisions. So am I willing to do what it takes? Am I willing to accept that I don't know all of this and I need to learn it? And it will take time learning to train horses, learning to work with horses. It takes time because you need to repeat it. No great musician ever just sat down at his piano and played the piano. They all started off at the beginning. They all made mistakes. Lucky for the piano, they didn't ruin the pianos. Sometimes the horse pays a price, as we learn. But there's not really another way of going about it, is there? We need to make mistakes. So if you're not willing to make mistakes, you're probably not willing to become a horseman. You need to get it wrong in order to get it right. That's just how it goes. So you're going to get it wrong for a little while, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to need to accept that. And no one's going to be able to do it for you. No one can do your push-ups for you. Only you can do your push-ups. You want to do your exercise? Do your exercises, but no one can do it for you. I notice over here, I've been teaching for quite a while in Europe now, and a lot of students would like the instructor to teach them and almost do it for them. But that doesn't mean they want to learn. They'd like to be taught, but they wouldn't necessarily like to learn. Now, that's two different things, being taught and wanting to learn. If you want to learn, you might have to go and look for it yourself. You might have to go after it. You might have to make an effort. But if you just want lessons, oh, I just want 4 lessons a day. Well, that's not meaning that you want to go out and learn. Now, I'm not saying that lessons are a bad thing. I don't think anyone makes anywhere in life without a coach. No one in anything, business or anything else, ever made it without having a coach. You can't just invent this stuff. If someone says, oh, well, I'm a horseman, but I kind of did it by feeling. Yeah, right. There's too much information. It's way too hard. I mean, I spent a fortune trying to learn this stuff, and I'm still doing it. So it's not just something that you can do by instinct. It doesn't happen. You need to learn it. It's like piloting an airplane. You know, if you get on an airplane and the pilot says, yeah, I just fly this baby by feeling, you know, get off the airplane. It's not going to work. So he had to learn that, and he had to do the hours and the hours and the hours and get it right. And that's just how it goes. And this phase that you're going to go through where you're consciously incompetent, it's going to be uncomfortable, and that's great. You know, when you're uncomfortable, you're growing, because growing is uncomfortable. So you're in that phase and you say, okay, this is the good spot. This is tricky. I'm having trouble now. And you know that you're in the right place, because one day you're going to become consciously competent. You're going to know what to do, and you're going to be able to get it done. Problem is, you're going to need to think about it a lot. There's a kid who went up to Bruce Lee once. He says to Bruce Lee, how many years would it take me to become a black belt? And Bruce Lee said, oh, it'll probably take you about 7 years. You're young, fit, pretty athletic kid. Take you about 7 years. The kid said, oh, right. And if I think about it a lot, if I really think about it, he said, yeah, no, that'll probably take you 10 years. So there's a time in there where you're consciously competent and you know that you can do it, but you need to think about it. So you're sitting on your horse and you're saying, okay, well, I need to look where I'm going. Don't look at the ground. Where's my weight? Okay, it's here. Put this leg behind the girth. Open this rein out here and turn the horse around here. Don't cross over the outside rein over. And there's a lot of things to think about. It's like driving. That's why they put plates or the letters on learner drivers. We've got L plates in Australia. Over here, there's an A on the car, and it means as an amateur or an apprentice, they're learning to drive. And they need to think about it. They don't have the right reactions. The truck in front slows down. they don't just go clutch brake without thinking about it. Their feet don't move independently of their brain. The time they think about it, it's a little bit too late, and that's why they're only allowed to drive at about 80 k's an hour instead of 130 or whatever. So it's the same thing with horses. If you're thinking about it, it's probably not happening fast enough. It needs to become a reflex. It needs to become a reaction. It needs to be something that works by muscle memory and without having to think about it. But that's going to take a lot of repetition. You need to do that a lot and a lot and a lot, and one day you'll be able to do it without thinking, and you'll become unconsciously competent. So I'll go through those phases again. In the beginning, you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know how the horse learns. You think that, oh, he doesn't like blue, but you don't know what caused the problem. And you think a lot of things. You interpret things quite poorly in the beginning because we don't know any better. And when we don't know because the science wasn't there, well, we make up belief systems, which are quite inaccurate normally. And then we do a clinic and we get into a very painful spot where it's rather uncomfortable, and you suddenly find out that in fact you're consciously incompetent. You know that you don't know. And now you know that there's a lot of work going to have to be done in order that you do know. And then eventually you'll know, and you'll know that you're consciously competent. You know that you know what to do, but it takes time and you need to think about it. And it'll take a lot of repetition before finally you become unconsciously competent. And these phases, they're normal. Now, sometimes people block up in the second one. They'll get to that consciously incompetent phase and suddenly find out that, oh dear, I'm not as good as I thought I was, and I've got a long way to go, and it's going to take a lot of work. Well, that looks like a difficult track. You know, I want the view, but I don't want to climb the mountain. So they get into a sort of a denial and blame and anger and chaos situation where it's the fault of the clinician, it's the fault of the trainer, it's the fault of this, it's the fault of that, blame everybody, and then or deny, I don't have a problem, everything's fine. I can't stop the horse, but apart from that, everything, well, I can't get him in the trailer either, but apart from that, and I can't shoe him, but it doesn't matter, I wanted to go barefoot anyway. So you get into the denial situation, and then you start blaming people and blaming the saddle and blaming the horse, which is pretty popular, and then get a little bit angry about the whole situation, and sometimes just decide that the whole horse game's not for you and go and buy a packet of golf sticks and try playing golf. So these things happen. Now, if you want to avoid getting into that denial and blame and anger and chaos situation, well, you need to accept, okay, got some work to do, and you need to get a little bit of courage. In French, the word for the heart is cœur, and the word courage comes from the rage in the cœur, in the heart, the rage in your heart. And sometimes you need to get that. You need to, okay, what have I got to do? And I'm going to get it done. You might have to take a look at yourself, take a long, hard look at yourself and say, okay, how do I carry myself? Am I walking around like one of life's victims, or do I need to straighten up and toughen up? What are the voices that I hear when I'm thinking about I could become a horseman? Oh, yeah, but this, yeah, but that. Yeah, but is always the word that comes before an excuse. So if you're living with excuses, it might be difficult for you. So you might have a look at yourself and say, okay, I need to straighten up, toughen up, stop making excuses, and have a clear vision. Where am I going to go and how am I going to get there? If you don't have a clear vision of where you're going and how you're going to get there, you're not going to make it. You're just going to bounce off walls all over the place. So you've got to have a clear vision and decide, this is where I'm going. I have a focus. So I have a good posture. I'm listening. We've got a monologue over here, the words that we're listening, the way we talk to ourselves. And do I have a clear focus? And am I becoming a horseman? Now, you might not have all the techniques under control, but you can become the person and then get the techniques. But how does a horseman walk? How does he talk? How does he act? And how does he work? And how does he get things done? And how is he able to question himself? And what sort of person is he? And how do I become that person? And I think horses really need humans to become horsemen. They don't need victims. Horses don't want to be those things where we say, oh, well, the kids have left and the husband's left and the life's falling apart, but I've got my horsey and he'll give me unconditional love. Horses aren't there for that. You need to be able to offer your horse something. So that would require you working on yourself. A lot of humans can't offer the horse much. The horse can offer them something, but maybe if the human could work on himself, maybe he could offer something to the horse, become a better human for the horse. But it will require asking a lot of questions, and it might require you taking a long, hard look at yourself and saying, okay, what sort of emotional state am I in? Look at your horse and what sort of emotional state is your horse in? Okay, what sort of emotional state are you in? People turn up for clinics and they've got a thoroughbred bouncing around like a kite on the end of a string. Oh, but Andy, he's really, really agitated and he's always jumping around. He's really, really nervous and he's stressed all the time. No shit. Well, how'd that happen? Was someone else standing there with the horse? Yeah, he's pretty lazy, doesn't really like to go. So how did that happen? So maybe take a look at yourself. Over here, you often hear the phrase, my horse is my mirror. It's not just a throwaway phrase. It's not as light as you think it is. So, how am I doing? Am I all that my horse needs to be? And am I taking things personally? Am I moving away from these anthropomorphic beliefs? Am I understanding fully my horse doesn't know right from wrong? My horse doesn't know good from bad. He couldn't be wrong. He doesn't even know what it is. So when things are going wrong, am I questioning myself or am I blaming the horse? If you're blaming the horse, you're not going to become a horseman. You need to question yourself and say, okay, horse is in trouble. He's not getting it right. I mustn't be being clear. What do I need to get done to help my horse with that? But if you're just blaming the horse, you're taking the easy track and you're not going to become a horseman. So there is an enormous amount of work to do on the human to become a horseman. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm telling you the exact opposite. It isn't easy, and that's what's good about it. Difficult choice, easy life. Easy choice, difficult life. Take the hard road. There's a lot more to see down that track. So make the decision. I want to become a horseman. I'm willing to question myself. I'm willing to not blame the horse and say, okay, the problem's probably me. What do I need to do to become the human that my horse needs me to be? So we could talk a lot more about that because that's a mighty big chapter, but I would invite you, if you're interested to become a horseman, don't just concentrate on the techniques. Concentrate on yourself. Am I becoming the horseman that my horse needs me to be? And then you can apply the techniques. Understand why you're doing it. What are your reasons for doing it? Understand how to do it, but become what you need to become, because otherwise you won't be able to help the horse adequately. Pretty big subject. Maybe there's a bit of psychology in horsemanship, in working with the horse, and also there's a bit of psychology in working with the human. And the first human that we really need to work with is ourselves. If you want something to change, the first thing you need to change is yourself. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. So, need to change yourself. Might take a little bit of work. The rewards, way, way, way worth it. Have a good journey, have a good trip. Enjoy becoming a great horseman, and we'll have more videos for you very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye now.